All right, how to develop them New Vegas skills, IRL, part whatever, medicine. I'm just another talking head, and medicine's probably the coolest skill you can have both in New Vegas and outside of Vegas. And whoa, I can't maintain that energy the whole video, Jesus. Maybe I could. Maybe like, something a bit more powerful than this does the same job. Some men's hats, maybe? Oh. In any case, medicine is, I'm not going to say I'm a medicine build, but it's a skill that I probably have, like, of the New Vegas skills. I mean, it's like so, like, I don't know. I don't want to be like one of those people that's like the lowest rank nurse you can be and be like, I have a commitment to healthcare. It's just, it sounds geeky, but like, I don't know. I like the concept of healing. If there's one cool thing about the human experience, I would say it's the healing factor, as painful as it is. I like that. I like regeneration as a concept. So yeah, I like medicine. I'm a hermit after all. But um, the best thing I would suggest, and I mean this too, this is like if you were to make like one expensive purchase in your life, and there's free ways around this. You can probably, in the same way that like I learned history, but I never took like college level history, but I like history. You can probably learn everything there is to know about like anatomy and physiology classes. You could probably learn that through Wikipedia, but like I don't know. I'd say it's worth the investment if you could do it. At one point in time, I needed prerequisite courses. I mentioned in a previous video I needed prerequisite courses to get into a program, and I was chipping away at some of the, like other classes that I didn't need, I didn't need to be in that program to do, but they were required to graduate. So I started doing my anatomy and physiology classes before I got into the program, and that was like to be able to completely focus on anatomy and physiology, and you like pay out of pocket and do like 2 semesters of just 2 classes, and it's just like that was nice. That was nice. That was during a period in my life where it was much easier to do that, but like that was a cool period of time. I was like, and just kind of really getting to fully immerse myself in it. Like, obviously, I wasn't a NEET because I was in college, but like, I wasn't working during that time. I was just kind of living at my dad's house, but he wasn't. He was working on the road at that time, so that was just a cool year of me playing Battlefield 1 for like 17 hours a day, and then doing that class. And then I remember like people would stop by and see me, but I don't really remember interacting with them. So maybe I'm the problem. But in any case, I guess a little bit. That's how I got started on Stellaris, actually, as a transition from Battlefield 1 to Stellaris before I moved. But, and now that game's unplayable. Disaster. Sad. Sad. It's very sad. Many people could play Stellaris. It was a great game. You'd enjoy it. You'd build your country up. They even let you have a gang. You could have a gang that runs a country. It was so fun. And then they ruined it. They ruined it. They ruined it again. Oh, that was almost. We started to get it there at the end, but this isn't. Yeah, I won't assault you with that anymore. My horrible impressions. Take an A&P class. Like I said, all the other skills. The best way to learn that is to practice. Don't just start practicing medicine on people best of your ability, unless you're like reading cards out of like a first aid kit to get up to like medicine 25. Then at that case, I would be like, okay, sure, try it. Disinfect your buddy's cut, put a band-aid on him. And I'm not saying like I caution away from being hardcore because when I was doing jujitsu with my cousin, I was about 15 years old. He was an adult. He'd be 20, so he was 26. I was 15. He was one of those guys that was like more pain the better. My pain tolerance is my fighting style. Blah blah blah. And it didn't work out well. So he just had me kicking him in the ribs one day, and I broke 3 of them that day. And we didn't know till like years later, 6 or 7 years later. No, I really think it was 6 or 7 years later. But like we found out he got an X-ray for something unrelated, like lymphoma or something. And they're like, "Oh yeah, your ribs healed completely wrong." And he's like, "Oh, it must have been that day that I told you to just kick me for an hour." So I mean, like, yeah, that's tough, but like that's like where was the value in that? Like, you know what I mean? Now you just have like bones that healed wrong to be marginally tougher. Are you immune to pain? No one's ever immune to pain, really. So, like, was that worth it? I can't say. Is that advancement in medicine? I don't know. Toughness almost is a medicine stat because I think of that guy that was in Antarctica that did like an appendectomy on himself, like unsedated. Could you imagine opening your own guts and operating on it? I am so like so my body, like I don't want to brag. I got heavy bones. I was like the classic. I had the classic fat kid excuse when I was a kid. I had like really dense. I sink in water. Like I'm a witch. Like you put me in water, boom. Swimming super strenuous for me. I gotta fight to keep afloat. Like I'm burning calories, man. And I mean, I'd be a beast if I just did that every day. I might. It would be cool to just dig a little pond in my front yard. It'll just make it deep enough for me to tread water in and not be able to hold the walls. Gotta have a ladder though. In any case, yeah. So like, I noticed that some toughness related. I can't even remember if the toughness perk requires medicine. I don't think it does. So maybe that's just a bad argument by New Vegas logic. But I guess I've always kind of considered like the ability to do medicine is also kind of goes hand in hand with the ability to stomach pain or at least stomach some horrific sights. Because when I was in rad tech, I only did a semester of rad tech. I'm studying something else medical now. But when I was in rad tech years ago, I we had to do we pretty much were doing all these captures on bones. You know, like we had to do our not practicals. I can't remember what the exact word was, but once we did like simulations, like we were told it was like a simulated bone. So we'd get like a bone out of like a closet. Okay, go get a femur, do this scan on it, do this position on it. Go get a hand. And we want focus on this. And to be honest, I forgot so much of it. I used to know every bone in the body, but you know, you lose stuff. In any case, so like we were messing around with these bones. The hands would be like wired together, so they stay together. It wasn't just like a bunch of hand bones that you had to articulate yourself, but like, so there's all these bones, and we're told that they were simulated bones the whole time. We were told that they made a point out of it, so I never questioned it. But looking back at it, it's like if this was like a story or a book, it would be so obvious. And we get to like the week before the end of that semester, and they're like, "Oh, those bones you've been handling this entire time were of an Asian man in his late 40s." And I was like, there was like a moment of like, I felt like I wanted that to have an effect, but it didn't. But I could tell that it had effects on other people in the room. Like I was like, it's creepy, I guess, but like I guess I just don't find it creepy, and I'm easily scared. I'm like really like really all my life like I guess I'm really not so easily scared now. I guess because just like you can only take so much fear before I don't know, you either just like learn how to eat it or you learn how to run away from it. I don't know though, because like financial fear, right? That's the worst one. That's the one I can't. The fear of shame and the fear of disappointing everybody. Those ones are still around, but every other fear, especially like esoteric or supernatural, I'm like Dante, dude. But where was I going with that? Oh, so I guess like there was a bunch of people that I could tell like, in radiology, sometimes you have to X-ray a dead body, and if you can't do your job as a medical professional because you kind of don't have that toughness towards like body horror for lack of a better term. So yeah, there's that. But that was a really long tangent. I wouldn't say improve your medicine by being macabre, but I would say that there is like a pretty like strong correlation between goth girls and morticians. So I guess if you have a fascination with the morbid, you're more comfortable around the morbid. And as like swell as healing sounds, it's pretty gross, especially in a professional setting. I mean, if you work in a hospital, if you worked in a nursing home, even if you didn't work direct patient care, if you did it as a cleaner or as a cook, I've been a cleaner, a cook in a hospital. I've been both of those things. I've been security. I've been all over, not just in hospital. I mean, I've had tons of jobs through my life, but like, yeah, any centers of healing are pretty gross once you understand the logistics of them. Just the amount of waste that needs to be thrown out. But I'm sorry, none of that improves the skill. Like it does though. It does because if you can stomach that stuff, that will make you a better physician, a better medicine man, a better medical professional. If you can discuss these things openly and concisely, and if you can kind of expose yourself to these like stimuli, like a lot of fields in health, you don't have to be exposed to the smells, and then there's some where you're going to be just smelling the most rancid odors that could be experienced of the human condition on a daily basis. And if you can stomach that, you can do the job. If you can't, you can't. But then again, if a medicine 100 just doesn't want to be a surgeon anymore, does that make him not a medicine 100? I don't think so. So I don't know. That really kind of draws a lot of questions into what a skill really is. There's the skill, but how do you measure a skill objectively? How do you go ahead and say, like, this guy is better at it than this? When you have to consider, like, what barriers they have to cross to learn that skill to begin with, how much they like that skill. Because, like, if a guy hates bodybuilding, but he becomes, like, the best bodybuilder, that's an insane accomplishment compared to, like, a dude who loves it. But that's a weird argument to make, but it's true. So I don't know. I try to learn as much as I can about medicine, but I also accept the fact that I never want to work in a medical profession ever. That sounds bad because it's like, well, aren't you getting like a degree? Yeah, but it's like it's sort of a health adjacent one. Well, why not just say it? It's like, well, I don't know. It's if you or if you can do the clerical duties of health, that's still health and it's not gross. How about that? But it's not even. I don't know. We'll see what the future is on that. That's I'm getting that degree for free, so we're getting that degree. You know, and we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, medicine. The colleges gatekeep the hell out of it, and whatever they don't gatekeep, definitely on a professional level, is being gatekept by any kind of accreditation, uh, whatever you want to call it, organizations, which is good. You don't want like the plague doctor. You don't want guys saying they're doctors when they're not doctors. Like I had a funny conversation with my doctor last time I was in there. He's my age. He's like probably just old enough to be a doctor, and if he's a bit older than that, then I'm very sorry to insult you. Like I'm saying this as a bro. I actually see you as a bro, but sort of in a weird way. But like I told him I was asking him about A and P, and I was like, is there any more like advanced A and P beyond 1 and 2? Because I feel like you learn the structures of the body, and you learn how that's the other thing I can't forget. You want to know medicine? Know neurotransmitters. Know them. Understanding neurotransmitters and its effects on human psychology was like one of the biggest like discoveries in my life. Is actually understanding how a brain works, actually understanding like what's going on in a neuron, and how like physical conditions can influence emotion. And it's like, yeah, duh. And it's like, yeah, but you have to consider I never saw it that way. I always thought that the human emotion should always be separate from what it's going through. That's how I was like raised. So when I found out, it's like, oh no, if you're starving, you will be upset. That was new information to me when I took it. So that's why I recommend taking classes, because like you can read like how a liver works on Wikipedia. You can read how the lungs work. You can read how the muscles work. You can maybe start getting into like some more, like the sodium potassium pump and getting into understanding those concepts. But when someone's really kind of dragging you through it and forcing you to learn how all these things fit together, you do kind of get a better teaching. But it's funny because I also kind of openly declared war on anybody in the religious sector who tries to gatekeep religious information by saying like, oh no, you need me to give you context. Which they're sort of right about that, because some people fly off the handle, but I think anybody who's kind of thinking about what they're doing and what they're reading and what they're seeing doesn't need to be led through that sort of thing. But now we're in the religion again. That's what do they call that? The Akashic Event Horizon. Once you kind of self-actualize, you can't look at anything without looking at it through some kind of spiritual lens. Some would just call it mental illness, and I understand that. So I'm sorry for being annoying. But to me, it's kind of cool. Medicine's a beautiful thing. It takes a lot of forms, and ultimately, what makes you feel better, but what makes you live longer is what's healthy. You have to think about like, well, feeling good is healthy, but you know, a lot of things can make you feel good that aren't healthy. And it's about finding this sort of balance that even medical science hasn't really been able to achieve. In a weird way, I have to do it again with the religion thing, because I feel like Taoism has an answer for this in an ancient book called the Neian, which is just like, you gotta realize that your body needs balance. It doesn't use these words, but the body essentially it's entropic. It wants to fail. And you kind of have to do certain maintenance, which is not just working out. It's eating right, it's working out, it's psychological well-being. There's so much to it, no one could put it in a video. The most brilliant scientists in the world can't agree on it, therefore it can't be put in a video. But when I think of medicine, I think it's a good thing, because I think medicine, when used correctly, directly results in you both feeling good and being good, ideally, in a vacuum. Obviously, today's world, people are pretty skeptical of medicine. It's because it became a business, and it's also an inevitability that it stays a business. It's weird. But thanks for joining me today. I'm sure this video is like 25 minutes long already. If not, if it's like half that time, that's really telling. I guess it's just been one of those days. Neurotransmitters, though. Look into neurotransmitters. It's funny, because I learned about neurotransmitters, and then I played Cruelty Squad, and the first time you die in Cruelty Squad, they revive you, and it says you're a flesh automaton, animated by neurotransmitters. It sent a chill down my spine. Crazy game, just for that line alone. Everybody else I've talked to that played it, never, they were like, it was kind of a good shit post game, I guess. But I was like, that game changed my life. Psycho Patrol R didn't, but Cruelty Squad did. I don't know. Maybe I needed to see what it had to say. I'm gonna go now. I love you guys. Thanks for checking me out today, and I'll see you soon. I think after medicine comes... Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. But I'll check the list before the next video and act accordingly. I'll see you guys around.